degree that it needs. And this has to do with certain hexagonal forms. I'm not claiming to know, there's other people. I think Larry's in here, and he knows some people that are working on this more extensively. I tried to look at the one reference, but I don't have them. But let's just make the point tonight to show you the pictures, okay? Let me just show you the pictures. And there is a crystal form, okay, an hexagonal form that is being found, and the environmental conditions under which has been found are not entirely clear to me yet. I have seen references to rain, and I have seen references to skin. I don't have the direct evidence of either right now, so I don't know what we're dealing with. And the pictures I have seen have always been, so far, of very low magnification. So fortunately, Larry sent me one of these, so at least, for the very first time, I was able to at least capture some images of this thing, whatever it is. I'm not going to dwell on this, other than it is interesting. But the point is, the work needs to be done properly, and thus far, these are actually the best images I have seen of these particular forms. This is actually very low magnification on my side. This kind of thing there's problems with this object in that it won't allow any light through, so it's very hard to get any kind of images under the microscope. I'll show you the shape of it, and I think the one thing that I wanted to make a point of, I guess here's the point I want to make with respect to language on this one. Let me get to where I can show you this one. Alright, this is one that just shows you the outline of the object. Okay, the outline of the object. Here's the problem I have with things like this. I hear terms to the effect of, nanoparticles. Okay, that these are nanoparticles. I'm sorry. There's a real problem with, and that's one of the most obliterated, overused terms that there is with respect to this research. And there's a really serious problem, because if anybody actually knew what nano was in terms of size, it's absolutely absurd and impossible to state that things of this magnitude and this size are in the nano range. It's not even close, okay? We can't even begin to see nano without very, very sophisticated equipment. This thing is huge. I won't even get into sizes. But what you can see under the scope is this thing is not uniform geometrically. Okay? There's nothing particularly uniform about it. Crystal forms are one of the most common forms of nature that there are. This may or may not be a natural object, but to imply that it somehow is some artificial object in the nano size range is absolutely absurd. That would be my contention at this point. And so we need to be more careful of our language. And once again, there's a whole outline of work that actually needs to be done. But no proper origin or nature of this has been described, other than, I would say, crystals are one of the most common forms of nature, and there's certainly nothing perfectly geometric. It may be very important down the road. I'm not trying to dismiss or deny that. It's just that I want the work to be done properly, and this is the type of thing the Institute would like to do, to settle these questions and seek the truth, rather than hanging out in this obfuscated and confused world for years at a time. We actually go on for years, remaining in the same state of knowledge. And it's totally unacceptable to me. And I've done the best I can with certain issues, but I can't begin to touch all that is needed. Okay, that's my tirade on the necessity for proper work. And I don't care where it gets done, and I don't care who does it. I just want it done. And I've made the point all along. I don't care who does it and how it gets done. I want it done, and I want it done right, and I want the information freely made available to the public. Alright, the next topic is just an anecdotal comment. And I won't place any more value upon it than that. It's just a statement of observation. I have observed the aerosol operations, as many of us have, for many, many years now, about 12 years. And a certain pattern that I started to observe. It probably took at least 4 years or so, I would guess, to even begin to raise the notion of that. But it was the decrease, the general decrease of activity in the summer months. And if we look real closely at my work, we'll find some kind of reference to that in earlier interviews, that it was catching my attention a little bit. But that's a hard thing to get a handle on, too, when you're talking about an annual thing. How long does it take before you start getting reliable data? But I started noticing several years, but not anything like the current time, I'd say about 3 or 4 years into it, which would be about 8 years ago, that during the summer months, the activity level of these operations would actually seem to diminish. And I do remember a couple summers where, specifically, I remember one where we had 8 weeks of really absence, and it was a remarkable thing. It was quite marvelous, the change that started to occur. I also noticed during these same years that, again, you would get what I would call the banter out there, and the statements that, again, are not particularly supported or justified, but there would be people saying, well, I put a stop to it, okay? You know, I had my chembuster out there, and I put a stop to what's happening. Many, many people, all right, not allowed to exaggerate, Clifford, but there were people that would make such claims. And those of us that are, call it, fairly deeply involved in this issue, would usually just sit and wait, because we had seen many times where you sort of had a false hope that, you know, hey, these things are actually not going to go on forever, and life's going to go back to normal. And then you'd be cussing and swearing because your world was taken away from you again, and your right to life was taken away from you again. Well, this went on for several years and has gone on, and I have made certain references to that in a gradual way over the years. I simply wanted to make a comment that this year thus far has been especially interesting in light of what I'm speaking about. It has been noticeably clearer. You know, Lee he sort of had it perfect. And I'll tell you, there have been many times where I have literally predicted the onset of the operations, return to the operations, just by the clarity of the sky. If you look at the stars, and again, this is anecdotal. I'm not saying anything is scientific here and rigorous in terms of presentation, but I would get to the point where I could see the stars because I'm an amateur astronomer and have an interest in it. And every time that I would start to see a absolutely beautiful sky, when I'd say, you know, it's really starting to look good again, I honestly swear within the next day or two, they would hammer us. Okay, and this has happened. This is all anecdotal, but it happened a lot. And Lee, who's one of the members of the Institute, made that same exact comment in an email, you know, and he said something to the effect, I knew it was too good to be true, to be so blue. Something to that effect, and that's the point. Well, I think this year there is some observational evidence that would indicate that the activity has diminished. I just made a trip across the country, north and south, from New Mexico up through Montana, and spent a couple weeks on the road. And it was honestly one of the most beautiful trips that I have seen in really many, many, many years. And the cumulus patterns and the depth of color was really a wonderful sight. You know, it's a good thing to have a good feeling in your life sometimes too. You know, and I have to say it was very nice to see nature taking its hold and its reign again in a stronger way than I have seen it for some time. And also we have certain rain patterns that are starting to appear a little bit more regular, particularly up in north. And they've been hammered up there with rain up in the north. And I'm not here to say, you know, everything is over any more than any other year, other than the observational pattern keeps becoming reinforced that there appears to be a diminishing of the activity during the summer months. And my particular... Well, I'll give you my ideas on it, and it's only an idea. But the first idea is that we should be looking for seasonal variations, number one. Okay? That would be one. The second would be that we should be looking at the data, if we ever had access to it, in a comprehensive sense from a hemispheric point of view. In other words, northern and southern hemispheres.